Imagine being saved by a billionaire, only to have him turn around and publicly demand millions in return. That's exactly what's happening to Meghan Markle, and the fallout is as jaw-dropping as it is unexpected. How did the woman who left royalty for freedom end up in a 16 million crisis? Stick around to uncover the shocking betrayal that's unraveling Meghan's Hollywood dream, and why Tyler Perry might be the one who's exposing it all. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry made their bold exit from the royal family, they faced an unforgiving world, scrutinized by the press, isolated from the palace, and chased by paparazzi at every corner. It was a moment of high stakes and even higher risks. Enter Tyler Perry. The billionaire mogul didn't just offer a temporary shelter. He opened the doors of his massive estate in Los Angeles, providing them with a haven when it seemed like no one else would. But Perry didn't stop at simply giving them a roof over their heads. He became their lifeline in Hollywood, lending them credibility and connections in a city that thrives on reputation. For Meghan and Harry, Perry wasn't just a benefactor. He was a friend, a protector, and, perhaps most importantly, an ally who understood the power of public image. At a time when the media were tearing apart their every move, Perry stood by them, risking his reputation to shield theirs. This wasn't just a gesture of kindness. It was a calculated move to secure a future in Hollywood. Meghan, once royalty, was now venturing into new territory, trying to build an empire that could match her previous life's fame and luxury. And in Perry, she found someone who not only understood the stakes, but also had the power to help her get there. What they didn't know then, however, was that the very man who offered them sanctuary would eventually be the one to expose the cracks in their empire. Meghan Markle's venture into the world of business was meant to be nothing short of revolutionary. Her brand, as ever, was designed to be the epitome of elegance and empowerment, a vision that combined luxury with social impact. Think of it as Goop, but with a royal twist. Meghan set out to create a brand that would not only empower women, but also champion sustainability and social justice, with a touch of royal magic sprinkled in. It was a bold and aspirational mission, one that had the potential to redefine the celebrity business model. But despite the polished branding and the high-profile backing, something wasn't quite right behind the scenes. The hype surrounding As Ever quickly fizzled out. The products, meant to appeal to an affluent audience seeking both luxury and purpose, felt overpriced and out of touch. The messaging was muddled, trying to be everything to everyone without any clear direction. And as the brand launched, it became painfully clear that the public wasn't buying into the dream. The once promising venture quickly became a symbol of overpromising and underdelivering. Insiders began to whisper that the execution was the real problem. Rather than building the brand slowly, testing the waters, engaging demand, Meghan dove in full force, hiring celebrity stylists, booking private jets for launches, and renting out five-star venues to project the image of a billion-dollar empire before she had sold a single product. As Ever wasn't about the slow, steady grind of building something sustainable. It was about trying to skip straight to the glittering finish line. And the result: a brand that felt more like a fantasy than a reality, and a business model that was starting to show cracks, ones that would eventually send As Ever crashing down. The dream of As Ever was built on high expectations, but the financial reality was far less glamorous. The most shocking blow to the brand: a staggering $16 million in unpaid expenses. This wasn't just a bad quarter, it was a glaring red flag that signaled a sinking ship. For a brand that was supposed to be the next big thing in Hollywood, this was a wake-up call that couldn't be ignored. The core issue wasn't just the numbers, it was how Meghan had approached the brand from the start. Rather than testing the waters, she dove in headfirst, spending like a celebrity with a proven track record. From luxury packaging to extravagant launch events, every aspect of As Ever was designed to impress. But the problem was simple. There was no solid foundation. The brand wasn't a household name yet, and yet Meghan was treating it as if it already was. As the bills piled up, it became clear that her ambition had outpaced reality. Instead of taking the time to build an authentic, sustainable business, Meghan wanted the world to see her as the next Estee Lauder, without having earned that reputation yet. And Tyler Perry, who had poured in resources, support, and possibly even financial backing, wasn't staying quiet about it. He had put his name on the line to support Meghan, but now that the numbers didn't add up, he was demanding repayment loudly and publicly. The demand for his money wasn't just about cash, it was about reputation. For someone as connected as Perry, who had risked his image to help the Sussexes, having his name tied to As Ever was no longer a badge of honor. Instead, it became a liability. And as Perry's public call for repayment echoed through the media, it sent a chilling message to the public and the industry alike. If Tyler Perry couldn't get his money back, what chance did anyone else have? The fallout from this financial misstep would prove to be far more than just a bad investment. It would shake the foundation of Meghan's entire Hollywood empire. When Tyler Perry went public with his demand for repayment, it wasn't just a financial statement, it was a bombshell. The man who had once stood by Meghan Markle, providing her with protection and support when she needed it most, was now publicly calling her out for $16 million in unpaid expenses. The sheer scale of the accusation wasn't just about money. It symbolized something much deeper: betrayal. Perry had always been a close ally of the Sussexes. He was there for them when the press relentlessly pursued them, when the world seemed to turn its back. His support wasn't just personal, it was deeply professional, helping them navigate the treacherous waters of Hollywood. So, when Perry took the extraordinary step of airing this financial grievance publicly, it sent shockwaves through the industry. It wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a signal that even those who had once vouched for Meghan and Harry were starting to question their business practices. And the optics of it all were devastating. Here was a man who had publicly backed their most controversial moves, defended them against harsh criticism, and offered them a place in his world of Hollywood elites. Now, he was publicly demanding money, and the message was clear. If Tyler Perry, a man with everything to lose, was calling out Meghan's business moves, then maybe the brand had deeper issues than anyone realized. The industry began to take notice. Retailers, distributors, and even other Hollywood insiders started distancing themselves from As Ever, unsure of whether they could trust the people behind it. Perry's bold declaration was more than just a business transaction. It was the beginning of the end for Meghan Markle's Hollywood dream. As soon as Tyler Perry's demand for repayment hit the headlines, the internet wasted no time turning it into a viral sensation. Social media, as it often does, didn't just report on the drama, it reveled in it. Hashtags like #eDebtDuchess and #ePaybackPrincess exploded across Twitter and Instagram, turning Meghan's financial troubles into a full-blown meme frenzy. But it wasn't just the typical social media mockery. This time, it was personal. TikTok quickly became the stage for a new kind of digital spectacle. Creators began stitching together clips of Perry's now infamous "Pay Back My Money" with Meghan's past interviews, layering her empowerment speeches over the harsh reality of her financial fallout. It was a cruel juxtaposition that spoke volumes. The powerful, confident woman promoting her brand was now the punchline to a joke about unpaid bills. What had once been a noble mission now felt like a series of empty promises and miscalculations, perfectly ripe for the meme machine. Even more damaging was the rebranding of As Ever on social media. What had been marketed as a trailblazing movement was now being reshaped as a joke. Meme pages began mocking the brand, renaming it from As Ever to As Never, suggesting it was nothing more than an empty fantasy. The slick, high-end images Meghan had carefully crafted for As Ever were now being shredded in real time by millions of online users, and the ridicule wasn't just contained to a few scattered comments. It became a viral force, spreading across platforms at lightning speed. For Meghan, the damage wasn't just financial, it was reputational. The internet had a way of turning pain into entertainment, and Meghan's brand was the latest target. No longer was she seen as the former royal breaking free. She was now a symbol of failure, her ambitious venture reduced to nothing more than a meme-worthy flop. And as the viral videos and hashtags gained traction, it became clear that this was far more than just a temporary backlash. The internet had turned her dream into a punchline, and there was no escaping the viral storm that was growing stronger by the day. As the financial and social media fallout continued to snowball, one of the most devastating blows to Meghan Markle's empire wasn't just the unpaid bills. It was the slow and inevitable erosion of her image. Once a symbol of empowerment, elegance, and royal glamour, Meghan was now seen in an entirely different light, reckless, stubborn, and unwilling to listen. And that perception didn't come from the press. It came from the very people who had once supported her, worked with her, and believed in her vision. Industry insiders started to speak out, though not publicly at first. Behind closed doors, they whispered about Meghan's refusal to adapt, her resistance to feedback, and the unchecked ambition that had led her to spend lavishly without any real strategy to back it up. As Ever launched, distributors and partners who had once courted her brand quietly began to distance themselves, voicing concerns about her leadership style. "She didn't listen," one celebrity stylist said, describing how Meghan often dismissed suggestions from those who had experience in the industry. Insiders reported that Meghan's response to early signs of failure was to blame poor marketing rather than to confront the reality of her brand's inherent flaws. When sales numbers came in below expectations, her reaction was to blame everything but the brand itself. She pushed back against calls for simpler, more affordable designs, insisting that As Ever had to maintain a high-end image, even when the market wasn't responding. As Ever continued to flounder, the gap between Meghan's aspirations and the reality of her business became impossible to ignore. Instead of pivoting and scaling back, Meghan pushed forward with more lavish spending, more high-end partnerships, and more expensive promotions. But none of it worked. And in the midst of this, Tyler Perry's public demand for repayment wasn't just a wake-up call for Meghan. It was a direct challenge to everything she had built. The more she dug in her heels, the more her image as a businesswoman crumbled. As Ever continued to flounder, one thing became abundantly clear. It wasn't just the brand that was crumbling. It was Meghan's carefully constructed public image. What had once been a story of ambition, elegance, and reinvention was now being rewritten as a cautionary tale of overreaching and stubbornness. And what made it worse was Meghan's silence in the face of it all. As her empire sank, the one thing she didn't do was speak out. No press release, no public statement, no Instagram post. Nothing. In the absence of Meghan's voice, the narrative was taken over by everyone else. The media ran wild, speculating on the cause of her brand's failure, while social media turned her once glamorous venture into a laughingstock. As the As Ever website went dark, its social media accounts fell silent, and product listings began to disappear from retail shelves. It became clear that the brand's disappearance was more than just a failed business. It was a symbol of a dream that had unraveled too quickly to save. The silence from Meghan's camp was deafening. For someone who had once been so vocal about her vision, her values, and her brand's mission, her refusal to address the crisis spoke volumes. It didn't look like a dignified retreat. It looked like someone who had nothing left to defend. Meghan, who had once taken center stage at royal events, was now a spectator to her fall from grace. And that lack of response allowed speculation to run rampant. Industry insiders, who had once hoped as ever would succeed, were now quietly scrambling behind the scenes. Retail partners triggered exit clauses, PR firms ghosted, and former collaborators began to distance themselves from the brand quietly. The deeper question no one dared to ask out loud was whether this failure was a reflection of Meghan herself. Had her celebrity status clouded her judgment? Had her unwillingness to adapt and listen led to a business that couldn't sustain itself? The death of As Ever wasn't just the end of a brand. It was the complete collapse of Meghan Markle's carefully crafted Hollywood dream. The glitzy launch events, the luxury branding, and the empowerment messaging, once celebrated as the next big thing, had all unraveled into a cautionary tale of failure. And in the midst of it all, the final blow didn't come from the press or critics. It came from the man who had once risked his reputation to stand by her, Tyler Perry. Perry's public demand for repayment may have seemed like just another financial dispute, but in reality, it was the final straw that shattered the illusion Meghan had built. When someone like Perry, who had been one of her most vocal supporters, goes public with such a damning statement, it's not just about money, it's about trust, betrayal, and the collapse of an entire narrative. Perry's words echoed through the media, cutting through the noise of tabloids and social media alike, and in doing so, they exposed Meghan's weakness in the business world. He wasn't just demanding a check, he was exposing her inability to turn her dreams into reality, despite the resources and support at her disposal. What followed was a swift and public unraveling. The brand, which had once promised to disrupt the market, was quietly erased from existence. The website went dark. Social media accounts fell silent. Retail partners pulled As Ever from their shelves without explanation, and collaborations that once seemed like a perfect fit vanished without a trace. It wasn't just a failed business, it was an entire brand identity that had been wiped away, almost as if it had never existed. In Hollywood, reputation is everything, and the swift collapse of As Ever sent a powerful message. Meghan's dream was just that, nothing more than a fantasy. The idea of a former royal-turned-entrepreneur building an empire was shattered, leaving nothing but empty warehouses full of unsold inventory and an online presence that vanished into thin air. So, how did it all fall apart so fast? Meghan Markle's journey from royal to Hollywood mogul was supposed to be a story of reinvention, empowerment, and ambition. But in the blink of an eye, it turned into a lesson on the dangers of unchecked ambition and the price of a carefully curated image that didn't have the foundation to back it up. Tyler Perry's public demand for repayment wasn't just about the $16 million. It was the moment everything collapsed, exposing the cracks that had been hidden behind glossy branding and lavish events. In the end, As Ever wasn't just a failed brand. It was the symbol of a dream that burned too bright, too fast. And for Meghan, the damage wasn't just financial, it was reputational, a devastating blow to the carefully constructed image she had built. The question remains, what's next for Meghan Markle? And will she ever be able to rebuild the empire that once seemed so destined for success? As the echoes of "Pay Back My Money" continue to reverberate, the story of Meghan's Hollywood dream serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between ambition and reality.